Okay, so actually, lots of links. You'll see in the it's right here. You'll see in the.
I'm gonna look at that one.
Evander Williams White. Welcome to the Heart Dog team. You'll see. Our audio's loud.
What?
What's that?
What did you say?
Sorry, I'm just setting up something here.
Oh.
Really quickly.
So we are going to get started and talk a little bit about some leadership, like we said tonight. And something that we often say that I think is really important is that we're not trying to get better leadership so that our dogs, become like these little robots that just like do everything that we say. We're doing it because we want to be able to have enough control over them that we actually can do the opposite, and that's give them freedom. So I know that sort of sounds a bit crazy, but you have enough control over them that you actually can set them free. And we want to be able to do that so that we can, live the most, rich life that we can with them. Because if I feel confident that my dog's going to be safe and that they're going to listen, then I'm going to feel better about going for that hike with my dog, or, taking my dog off leash in the field and, playing a little bit of frisbee or fetch, or going for a paddleboard with them, or going swimming or whatever, because I know that my dog listens and they, want to do the right thing, and therefore I can give them a little bit more freedom, because our goal here is that your dog listens to you, but we also want you to enjoy your life with your dog. Mm-hmm. Your dog's supposed to be a family member, and they are a better family member the better listener that they are.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I know some people, we get lots of interesting comments on the YouTube videos, but some people are like, well, I don't want to teach this. I don't want my dog to be a robot. And we get it, absolutely. But wouldn't it be nice if you could take them more places and they wanted to listen? It's so fascinating.
Camping.
Right.
There's just so many situations where a well-behaved dog is easier.
100%. And that doesn't make them robotic. In fact, what we're focused on is bringing the most of them out in their training, really highlighting, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do we make them more interested in listening and getting engaged? That's how you get those great recalls. I saw Uncle Yukon mention something about, rolling through the chat, something about he did a recall off of a deer. That's a pretty tough skill. And you need some training. You need some proofing to get that sort of response. But when you get that, boy, oh boy, is that rewarding. And now you can get into a little bit more challenging situations. You can take your dog where they have more freedom, which is what we're working toward. But at the beginning, you need to do something that we're going to talk about called smart dog training. And it's our acronym for the day. Capital S, capital M, capital A, capital R, capital T, smart dog training. And that's kind of the setup. Big part of what we do here is trying to help you, help the information stick, because it's important that you know what to do when something new happens. And so the acronym for today is the SMART training system to help you to be a better leader for your dog. Listening skills are really important, and following this structure as you're training your pup is going to allow you to make better leadership choices, be a better leader for them. And what will inherently happen is they'll start to look to you for information. They'll start to be easier to train. When nuisance things come up, you'll be able to train through them way more quickly. So if you're struggling, tonight is the night. You definitely want to check this training session out.
Should we start with the first one?
Let's start with it. It is S, supervision. Number one on the list is supervision. And let's talk a little bit about why supervision is so important and how poor supervision can undo a lot of training.
Yeah, supervision seems like, well, obviously supervision, that seems like a normal thing, but I cannot
is it
tell
like
you.
Supervision.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people think that they're being good at supervising the dog, but they are very, very, very bad. Because supervision really means truly that you have two eyeballs on the dog and you're actively supervising them. Just being in the same room while you type on the computer or you cook dinner or you're doing laundry or whatever isn't exactly going to cut it for dogs that need a little bit more information or quicker information. So supervision literally means that you're watching your dog. And when the meaning is watching your dog, suddenly you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't watch my dog every single second of the day. So we're obviously going to get into into that a little bit more. But that's really the type of supervision that we're looking for, because you want to be able to catch your dog in the act when your dog makes great choices, first off, but you also want to catch them in the act if they make poor choices, because if your dog is rehearsing things that you don't really love, barking at the window, or eating something in your house, getting into things, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
any behavioral problem, barking in the crate, whatever. Drop
in the chat. Do you have a nuisance behavior that you're struggling with? Let us know exactly let me know the top nuisance behavior that you're like, oh boy, I wish I could fix that thing. Mm-hmm. Because supervision is the key. What's so important is that there's a tiny window of time that you have to give your dog good information. If they're doing the right thing, you want to acknowledge that. And we use the word yes. So you want to acknowledge that, or you can even praise them depending on what you're working on if it's not a skill. Mm-hmm. You need to let them know. If they're doing the wrong thing at that moment, in that same 1 second window, you need to give them that information. Because in an absence of information, if you don't say anything, they're going to default to whatever feels good, mm-hmm. or tastes good, or whatever satisfies their current need, because that's the input that they're getting. So supervision is critical. You can catch them in the act of going into the garbage. You can, acknowledge the moment that they've chosen to go lie on their bed when mm-hmm. the house gets busy. These are the moments. This is the stuff that's going to unlock your dog training. And we're not talking about, 24 hours a day, eyes stuck on your dog. We're going to talk in a little bit about some management
how you can have
tactics.
A break from that.
Yeah, because you need it. Mm-hmm. Having a dog in training is exhausting, mm-hmm. but the effort you put in now will really pay dividends.
Yeah, and I want to go back to saying about that active supervision, because I've had people say, "Well, I watched him tear up the couch, or I watched him dig in the yard, or I'm seeing him do it."
Yeah, now what?
It's like, okay, well, then what are you supposed to do about it? And that's maybe it's that you don't really know what to do. So we're going to get into that as well. But active supervision means that you see it happen and then you act upon it. Whether that's saying, oh my gosh, what a great choice, good for you. Or whether it's saying, wow, that is a bad choice. I don't want you to rip apart my couch. Here's how I'm going to deal with it. There's lots of different scenarios there, but you need to see it in order to be able to do something about it. And that's the only way that your dog's really going to comprehend that, that they're making a mistake and that their behavior needs to change. Because if you don't see it and your dog is, rehearsing it over and over again, that now becomes the way that it happens. And I think what's important to remember about dogs is they don't do anything out of spite. They don't rip apart your carpet or whatever because you didn't walk them or you didn't whatever. They don't think like that. That's a awful thing that's how humans react to things. Yeah. That's something that we do. Dogs don't think like that. They're very in the moment, and dogs just do what's rewarding to them. And I think what people need to remember is that something that you think would be rewarding to them isn't necessarily rewarding to them. So to give you an example, somebody had mentioned in the chat, my dog's going to the bathroom, in the wrong places. Well, if your dog's going to the bathroom, in the house, to them, that's rewarding because their belly's full, they feel uncomfortable. They go, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. They go, they don't know that it's wrong. And then they go and they instantly feel relief. Well, now that's rewarding to the dog. They're not born learning that inside the house is bad and outside the house is good. They're not born learning that a couch is different than a chew bone. That's something that we as their owners, as their leaders, we have to teach them those things, and we have to teach it to them in a way that they actually get it. Yelling and screaming or, whatever it might be isn't necessarily getting the information to them the way that we need. So it's important that you understand how you're delivering the information to the dog too, because sometimes you think you're doing it, but you're not actually communicating with the dog appropriately. And that's why their behavior is not changing. They don't want to be a bad dog. They only do what they think is right. And sometimes what they think is right is messed up because of us.
That's right.
Because of us.
And here's the crucial part of, especially, I noticed a lot of people were saying barking. Someone said like digging in the carpet.
Super self-rewarding behaviors.
The reality is, if you don't see it, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
So you need to be ready. This is where supervision comes in. Watching your dog, anytime they have an opportunity to make a mistake, you need to be there. I did see there's a couple other interesting things people were struggling with. I did see some jumping up somewhere. I saw lots of barking, lots of challenges with barking. Okay. Let's move on to the M then. So we've talked a little bit about supervision. We need to talk about management. So immediately following supervision comes the management conversation. And I'm pretty excited. I'm so pretty. I'm so excited about the fact we've been working on these house lines for a long time, trying to get you guys like the perfect kind of house line. Whether you have a puppy or a young dog in training, house line is the key to success. A house line turns you into a dog training superhero because it extends your arms an extra 5 feet. It is one of the most important management tools that you can possibly use with your young dog in training. Now, we'll often say puppy house line. The reality is, with a young dog in training, if we bring a new dog into our house and we're not sure if they're going to be successful, house line. We'll put a house line on. So let's talk about a couple of the opportunities you might have to use a house line as a management tool.
Yeah, so using something like this is really great in the house versus a leash because it's lighter, it slips and slides through the furniture. People often say, well, doesn't it just get caught on everything?
Right.
And it does still get caught on things. It's a long line dragging behind your dog, but because you're supervising, it's very easy to deal with it. But it's
see how she did that?
Bringing it back to us. But what's nice about it is they do slip and slide and they move around. And the idea of using a line versus having your dog completely off leash is what I want to try and do is be able to gain control over my dog quickly and effectively without scaring my dog and without intimidating my dog. And also on the flip side, without making my dog think that, I'm trying to play a game with them. That's another thing that starts to happen. Your dog grabs a shoe and you say, hey, and you go to grab the shoe from him and the dog says, ha, this is super fun. And then it turns into a game.
Yeah.
And that right there clearly shows you that they do not feel that you're a leader. They're basically saying, when a dog picks up a toy and they say, hey, chase me, whoever is the one that's doing the chasing, not the one that's being chased, the one that's doing the chasing is lower in the pecking order. They are not the leader. The one that's being chased is the one that's controlling the game. People often think it's the other way around. So, if my dog picks up something that they're not supposed to and I go to grab that item, I don't actually go directly to the dog. I just walk very calmly and I step on the line. Yeah. Now when I walk up to take the item from the dog and the dog says, I'm out of here, they get about 2 feet and they're like, oh, man. And then I can grab a hold of the item and I can redirect my dog away from that item and get them to something that they should be chewing on instead, maybe their chew bone or whatever it might be. But I can do that all without saying my commands a million times. I don't have to lose my cool. I don't have to raise my voice. I don't have to chase the dog around the house. I stop it very quickly. And even better, the better way to use the house line is to have such great supervision that you can actually stop the dog from making the poor choice before they make the poor choice. Yeah. So to give you an example, dogs that jump up on the counters, if there's food up there. When I have this house line on and it's attached to their collar and I see them start to air scent and I see them start thinking about going to jump up, I can tell them off and I can step on that line before they even have a chance to jump up. And if that little turkey decides to jump up anyways, they're not going to be able to successfully do that because I'm standing on the end of the line. They get a little correction, they get down, and then I can say, woohoo, that's a better choice. Look at those floor paws on the floor. And then I can schmooze them up and let them know that being on the ground is a great place to be, and they don't get the satisfaction or that little mini reward of getting up there on the first place. So when we have a puppy all the way up through our training to like adolescent, when our dogs are not in the crate, which we'll talk about in a second, they always have some type of control house line on in the house. And outside the house, we have a way longer line, like a long line, 20 feet or so. But in the house, something that's about 6 feet or so really, really helps.
Yeah, so we've been talking about house lines for ages. All of our puppy videos, every single one at some point will mention something about the house line. I noticed some people in the chat were talking about nipping and biting and the struggle there. Having a house line is like like the fast forward to giving you control. You can slip your hand down the line and take control of that puppy as they're nipping and biting. You can redirect the puppy away from sock feet or your pant legs, but I do want to say that we have been talking about, you can go to something like the dollar store and get an inexpensive leash for a couple bucks and cut the end off, cut the handle off. And that works. You'll cut the handle off. Remember to melt the end of that handle just so that it doesn't fray and whatever. Be very aware of the clip, the kind of clip that's on that leash. So, for a couple bucks, you can definitely do this at your local dollar store or whatever. Or you could get the Cadillac house lines. You could grab the McCann Dogs line that's already prepared for you with a good clip. The end has been folded over. You can always cut these down too if you feel like it's too long. It comes as 5 feet.
This is nicer to hold than nylon.
Yeah, for sure. And when you step on this guy, it's going to hit the brakes, which is very cool. But we have them for large breed and small breed. This happened to come up as we were getting ready, as we made our way down to the train station. It's not the focus, but the house line is the game-changing tool, I will tell you, for a dog that's in training, regardless of their age, puppy or adult dog. So check it out on McCannDogs.store. The next important thing...
You know how special house lines are? I was just cleaning up some dog stuff before we got started, and our puppy is now 1.5 years old, and I just found Five Alive's house line, and I was going to throw it out, and I thought, no. This signifies all of the progress that he made. Oh. So I tied it up a little neatly and I put it away.
Oh, cool.
Keep it as a keepsake. That's how special I think house lines are.
Yeah.
Ridiculous is what it is.
The other important management tool that we want to talk about is a crate. Because you can't be you can't supervise. You can't be a great supervisor 24 hours a day. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible. Having a crate for your puppy or your dog in training, again, not just for puppies. A dog of any age.
Siri was writing down everything that you were saying on my watch.
And making notes for us. It is very helpful. Let's talk a little bit about using a crate in your dog training.
Yeah, crates are so helpful because, we're, most of us, I'm sure you guys, we're super busy. I'm sure you guys are really busy. And it's really difficult to, give all of your focus to that dog in training, regardless of the age, because we have normal life things that we need to do. And it's impossible to supervise our dogs all of the time. So we really like crate training our dogs. And our puppies, and we recommend that you start really the day they come home. We introduce the crate to our puppies, and we try to make it a really positive place for the puppy to be, so that they learn to go in and take naps, and they spend quite a bit of time in there. We can give you all kinds of crate training advice. We have countless videos on our YouTube channel about all the various avenues of crate training, making it more positive, dealing with biting in the crate, crate locations. So where you put your crate in your house can actually change your entire experience with crate training, believe it or not. I think that's an important thing to know as well. But, the crate is going to give you an opportunity to control what they're doing. And that means that when they're out of the crate, you can have maybe not as much quantity as maybe you hope to have in the future, but it's really then about quality. Yeah. I know that if my dog's spending, several hours in the crate at a time, I don't feel guilty about that because I know when I have, 15 or 20 minutes to bring the puppy out of the crate, I'm going to spend some quality time with that puppy, learning, teaching my dog to learn things. I'm doing some training. I'm doing some trick training. I'm playing. I'm building a bond. I'm building a relationship with my dog. I'm tiring my puppy out. I'm making sure they're well exercised. All of these types of things so that it's a very concentrated one-on-one interaction. Yep. And then I put my puppy away. And then I go and do normal human things. And then, a few hours later, I can go and get the puppy out and we rinse, wash, and repeat. Redo the whole process again. And when my puppies are young, and this goes for dogs in training as well, it doesn't need to be a puppy. We would do this with older dogs as well that maybe need a little bit more of a refresher. But my goal is that I want to train my dogs so that they're developing skills that don't allow me or don't require me to depend on the crate anymore. So the crate is something that you could use for your dog's entire life, should you wish to do that. But also it's something that you can use early in your training to help you get to the point where your dog, knows to lie down on a bed. They know not to jump up on furniture or eat things in your house or go to the washroom in the house or jump on the people as they come in the door or, tear apart your kid's playroom or whatever the situation is. Once they learn the rules of the house and they become a well-behaved dog, then the crate is not something that you need. But a lot of people are in such a rush to get rid of the crate, and then they end up getting bad behaviors that they have a hard time fixing, where if you can just use it in the early stages and get through all the hard parts, you really have a lot less problems as life goes along. But it's really about how you introduce and use the crate with your dog as to how your dog feels about it. Lots of people say, oh, my dog hates the crate, this, that. But, we've never had a dog that hated the crate. And I know that it's because of how we introduce the crate to the dog and how we feel about the crate. We love crates, and that training and that mindset travels over to our puppies because we don't make it a big deal. We keep them around and we utilize it, and that way our dogs are safe and out of trouble.
I'll tell you the thing that really changed my opinion, because remember, I was a student of McCann dogs long before I was a trainer, and I went there with a pretty out of control dog. But I remember your mom having a conversation with me about the leadership aspect, the idea that
controlling freedom.
Mm-hmm. Every time the dog comes out of the crate, you're there. You're working your butt off to get this dog to listen, and then you're trying to figure out what treats do they like? Do they like toys?
Yep.
What's the best way to engage with them? And then I would leave my dog in the main floor of the house at home for 4 hours, and she'd be able to just meander around, chew on stuff, her bones. She was never doing any nuisance chewing, but she would just decide that having a ball,
she didn't really need you because she could entertain herself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I know a lot of people struggle with the idea I want him to love me. Well, I'll tell you, the best way to encourage that kind of behavior is to show them that you're valuable. And when you give them
concentrated interaction.
That's right. When you give them all sorts of opportunity to be reinforced and rewarded by other things, you start to fall on that list. So every time your puppy comes out of their crate, every time your dog comes out of their crate, you're there to engage with them, do some training, have some fun, do some snuggles, and then they're exhausted by the time you're finished that training session. They go back in, they have a snooze, they start to think that, wow, every time I see that person, it is a lot of fun. I'm going to start to look to them for information.
I want to say something. Somebody said, the thing is, I work all day, and when I get home, I feel guilty if I don't let her free.
Right.
And if we had a penny for every single time we heard this.
Yeah.
So you are not alone. And it's
sure.
completely understandable why you would feel this way. But what we're trying to get at here, guys, is that free time is very different than concentrated interaction time. That is what's going to get you better leadership.
Right.
Just giving your dog free time is not going to do anything for your relationship with your dog.
Yep.
All it's going to do is just let them have free time out of their crate. What we're saying here is that you're going to not leave your dog in the crate all night when you get home from work. Absolutely not. But you're not just going to let your dog be out in the kitchen doing whatever by themselves while you're doing whatever you're doing by yourself.
Yeah, totally.
We want to promote more interaction between you and your dog, and that we're teaching them in the early stages is when that interaction is finished. So when we've finished our training session or our play session, or we've gone for a walk, or we've, played fetch outside or whatever it might be, maybe we have some downtime. And that downtime could be in a smaller area to control the dog's freedom, or it could be we put the dog back in the crate for a little bit while we do homework with the kids or make dinner or whatever it might be. But what we know as dog trainers is where the problems happen with dogs is when I've done my retrieving, I've done my puppy thing. I'm like, okay, I did that. I feel guilty. I don't want to put my puppy in the crate. So I'm just gonna let my puppy hang out in the kitchen or in the living room for a second while I go make dinner and I go help my kid with the whatever homework. That's the time when nobody's paying attention to the dog, that dogs then, when they're young and they're untrained, that they start to get in trouble. And so the dogs learn two sets of rules, one where you're paying attention and one where you're doing something else. So free time. What is free time? What is the dog doing during that free time? And what is that doing for your relationship?
Yes.
And this is not forever. I want to keep saying that because it's so important.
Yeah,
We have several dogs. Ken and I have several dogs, and our dogs range many, many different ages. And, some of our dogs just, Beeline is our 6-year-old border collie. Sometimes we don't know where she is in the house. She's upstairs on the bed, lying down and having a nap or whatever. And we don't care because she's fully trained. In the moment we call her, she comes running. She doesn't get into anything. But I wouldn't let my 1.5-year-old puppy just go upstairs and do his own thing on his own because he's younger. And not that I don't even trust him.
Yeah, he's not going to make a mistake.
No.
This is not the time for that.
No, I want him to learn to be close and to lie near me. I don't want him saying, I don't want to be around with you and go do your own thing. So we can lessen the rules as the dogs get a little bit older once they show us that we don't really need to have those strict rules on them. But we want to get that hard stuff, that leadership done stuff early so that we can chill out. I want my dog to choose to be in the room. We joke all of the time. We'll be sitting together watching TV and I'll be like, okay, I'm going upstairs. And then I say nothing purposely. And I'm like, let's see what dogs decide to follow me upstairs or stay with you downstairs. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is his dogs usually stay and hang out with him. And if I go upstairs, my dogs immediately get up and follow me up the stairs because they want to be close to their person. And that's the kind of relationship we want you to have with your dog.
I think there's going to be there's two takeaways here. People will be like, oh, those guys are talking about using a crate all the time. And then there's people that are like, oh, it means like engage with my dog more when they're out.
Yes.
The latter group is the one we're really talking.
Yes.
That's what we want you to think
get
about.
It.
If you don't ever use a crate, because you can supervise all the time, because you can engage with your dog, that's an amazing setup. Do that. But I'll tell you, as a real life human, you're going to have things that you have to do. You have to take the kids to school. You have to have a shower. You have to sleep.
Go out and get groceries? What happens if you have to work?
Right.
What happens if you have a 2-hour Zoom call?
Actually, talking to our vet the other day, she was saying that that's one thing a lot of dogs who haven't been crate trained, when they go in for like assessment or they need to be kept, you can tell the dogs that have some experience in a crate. And she said, you don't want to make an already stressful situation more stressful. And I'm like, that totally makes sense. The dog understands, being in the crate.
Yeah.
So I want you to really focus on that. The idea is your quality time. Engage with your puppy. Engage with your dog when they're out of their crate. But don't feel guilty about using a crate, because if you do this right, they're already ready to have a snooze and hang out in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've talked about crates for long enough. This also applies to things like baby gates. Management is a big picture thing where you don't allow your dog to make the mistakes by putting the garbage somewhere where they can't get it, by using baby gates, by using a crate, using a house line for sure is exactly how you're going to get ahead of things. Now, if you're using, one second.
What happened?
If you're using this thing, Anticipate, the A from SMA, then you're already going to start making better choices, but it requires you thinking ahead a little bit. So anticipating some of the problems that your dog might have, whether it's a leash walking challenge, maybe there's some distraction out in the real world that you find really difficult. If it's jumping up on the counters, maybe it's bark. I noticed a lot of people had barking problems. Maybe it's barking at the window. Maybe it's barking at whatever, neighbors walking by in your apartment, whatever the situation is. Maybe it's nipping and biting, and using anticipation to make better choices for that puppy is going to change how impactful, how effective your nipping and biting training is. Let's talk a little bit about anticipation.
I love the barking example because, if you think that there is a possibility that your dog's going to do that thing, they're probably going to do that thing.
Right.
You need to trust your gut. You need to know your dog. So if I know, that it's likely that when the Amazon guy walks up our driveway and I'm outside on the lawn with my puppy, that he might, spook bark at him, and I know that's possibly going to happen, I don't just watch it play out before my eyes. I anticipate, and then I take action. And the action might be some of my management skills. It might be get inside and get my puppy inside before, he has a chance to rehearse the behavior, so we don't keep doing the thing that I don't want him to do. Or maybe I use this as a training opportunity and I situate myself far enough away from the distraction that it's not super tempting. Maybe I have his favorite toy or his favorite treats and I work on getting him to sit at my side while the person comes up the driveway, and I can and reward him for being under some control. Maybe I can release him and have a little game of tug, which he loves, while that person walks up the driveway and he goes, okay, this seems like a lot of fun. Maybe I don't need to be quite so scared about that. But I anticipate that. And when I have great anticipation of things that can happen, and then I make great training choices, that also means that I'm doing it with good timing. And dog training is all about good timing.
So true.
I want to try and get good information in with my dog while that situation is happening, so he can pair Amazon guy tugging with mom, Amazon guy looking at mom getting treats, Amazon guy, great things happen. I like Amazon guy, and that's how I can put the situation together. And you just basically you take that formula, that Amazon guy fun stuff, and you just apply that to anything else. If your dog's barking at the window and people walk by, well, we're not going to let our dogs stand at the window and just let that happen. I'm either going to put them in the other room and not let them get access to that window, or I'm going to throw my leash on, get my bait bag ready, and I'm going to work on teaching my dog what behavior to do instead when somebody goes by the window. Maybe I'm going to tell a family member to go outside and walk around the house 10 or 15 times so that I get to try 15 times in a row with somebody walking by the window, and I can get some dog training in. So anticipation is massively important if you want to affect change in your training.
I'll tell you a great example of this. When we're at home, when our puppy Five Alive was little, we wanted to make the most. Kel was talking a little bit about, like, what do you do with the puppy when they're out of their kennel or crate. So at dinner time, we saw it as a great opportunity for one of us to train the puppy, the other one to make dinner.
Yeah.
And
divide and conquer.
That's right. So we would do little training sessions. You can actually see it in one of our videos. I don't remember which one it is, but in like the most recent puppy series. We would like do lots of exercises, but then we'd always end with go on your bed, and we'd teach him to go lie in his bed while we made dinner. So that eventually, once he got, a foundation of understanding there, then we would like make dinner, do our thing, and then he'd go lie in his bed. And then while we were eating dinner, we wouldn't actually be eating dinner because we were focused on training, but we'd begin the session by like just rewarding him for remaining on his bed. Well, guess what happened a few weeks down the road? As soon as one of us goes to get the utensils or the pots and pans out, the puppy goes and lies on his bed.
Just without us asking.
Yeah.
All by himself.
So, we're anticipating that
routine,
That's
repetition,
right.
Good timing.
Yeah, we want a behavior. We want an outcome. So we planned ahead for it. So if it's fixing a problem, where that problem might happen. I know a lot of people say, if I'm out on a walk and something surprises us, you can't plan for those things. But what can you plan for? You can teach your dog a skill like a leave it, where something catches you off guard and you've taught your dog to listen to you, to leave whatever the thing is alone and give you some attention. That's really the kind of anticipation we're talking about. If you anticipate that your dog's going to bark in the kitchen or in the front room with the big beautiful bay window, because we see this sometimes or hear this from students, what are you going to do so that your dog doesn't have an opportunity to bark at the window? I mean, there's all sorts of options, but how are you going to not put them in that situation where they're going to make the wrong choice? This is how you can be a great leader for your puppy, to not let them make the wrong choice and always set them up to make the right one. Now, with that said, there's going to need to be the odd mistake, because house training is a great example.
Yeah.
You can go a long time without your puppy ever having an accident or making a mistake in the house, but they might learn more on that one time where they screw up, where they make a mistake and you're like, hey, knock that off, or whatever your thing is. They know, okay, well, they've shown me, where I should go pee, but I didn't know I couldn't go pee right here. That moment can be really, really helpful and actually speed up the training for your dog. So, I know we talk a little bit. There are so many nuances to your training, and this is where something like our online training program, like our Life Skills or Puppy Essentials, comes in, where you can actually work with a professional dog trainer. Yeah. Maybe you can just talk about it just briefly, but so that in case somebody doesn't know about it.
Yeah, and if you're local, you can certainly come and train with us in person. At our training school in Flamborough, Ontario. But if you're not near us, or if you're in another country, you're really far away, then you can train with us online. And we have a really, really great program for puppies called Puppy Essentials, puppies under 4 months, or any age over 4 months, called Life Skills. And I don't even want to talk about the thing. We teach all the things that you need to know about dog training for sure. But what we really want to do is make sure that you know what you need to do for your dog. So especially in our online program, a lot of people don't really think that we'll get to know you and your dog that well, because you kind of think you're behind a computer the whole time. But we have a really awesome support group. We have instructors that are available, almost every day, where you can upload videos and you can ask questions, and we really do get to know you and your dog, so that if you're having trouble, and you can say, Fluffy's doing this, we can give you specific information to your dog, which might be different than what we tell, Frank and Scooter, because maybe their dogs, I know, I knew you'd like that.
I always say Scooter as the demonstration dog when I'm giving an example. I always say Scooter, and she always gives me a hard time, so I'm so happy that she said Scooter.
Anyways, what we know...
Lots of links. Can you clip that?
Yeah, what we know is that, every dog is a little bit different, and sometimes one thing that works for one dog and person, sometimes we need to tweak it a little bit for another dog and person in order for them to see success, and that's really what we want to do. We also have live, weekly coaching calls that we do every week with our students on all kinds of great topics. Anyways, it's really, really great. You can learn more about the programs on our website and whatnot, but yeah, it's really, really good. And I think it's important to say, if you're here, you probably watch us on YouTube, and we're dropping all kinds of information tonight for sure. And our YouTube videos are excellent, but they're really just a glimpse into
scratching the surface of actual dog training.
They're really just a glimpse into some of the things that we do, and they're certainly not formatted in like a step-by-step structured program. And I think that's one of the best things that's about the program. It's like, where do I start? Which things do I do first? In what order do I do things? And we package that all for you so that it's brainless, and we help you every step of the way.
But on YouTube, we try to make it fun. It's hard to make fun videos about some of the topics.
Yeah.
But we hope you enjoy it, and look forward to making more. This part of the SMART program is the redirection. Now, this is a really important one because it applies to so many different things, and this doesn't mean your dog jumps up and grabs your pant leg, so you immediately put a treat on their nose, or you immediately give them a chew toy so that they're not chewing on something. Redirection this redirection marries well with supervision as well as anticipation. You need to be ready. What am I going to do if my dog makes a mistake? Mm-hmm. And for those of you guys, I know some people were really struggling with like your dog barking on walks or pulling on walks. Redirection is an important moment. What are you going to do next? Another thing, like digging in the yard. Yeah, that's so common. People say like, well, what am I going to do every time he doesn't do when I'm out there, but digging in the yard. So my dog will just start digging a big hole. Well, if you can't interrupt that and then guide them away from that mistake that they're making, and then show them, but this is okay. Here's a chew toy. Here's a space that you can do whatever you want in. The redirection is so powerful, and I think it's often overlooked. I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh, dog's not doing what I want. Treat on the nose, guide them away. That's not good training. The dog's training you at that point. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about what the difference is there.
Yeah, I think, and it goes back to that timing thing that I was saying before. What you don't want your dog to do is associate you redirecting them from something and then getting a reward for that. So, for example, you can use the digging thing. If your dog's digging, and while your dog's digging, you say, hey, cut that out, and then you call them over to you, and you think, oh, that was such a great recall. And then you reward your dog, and you do that, day after day after day, your dog's going to learn, I know how to get a treat. I just run over, I dig a hole right there, and within seconds, they call me over and they give me a treat, and they go, that must equal that. The same thing happens. The dog will chew on something, and you'll say, don't do that, and then you give them something better to chew, and then the dog says, okay, this leads to that, and that's where you need to be careful with the timing. So redirection is, you need to have a little conversation stopper in the middle of the redirection. So if my dog's digging, I need to interrupt that behavior. I need to redirect my dog away from that hole. And then what I need to do is get them to do something else before I reward. And there needs to be more than a couple seconds between that and this, so that the dog doesn't pair things together. Yeah. I can actually give you a real example of actually a bad behavior that our own dog did just the other day. So Ken and I were out in our yard talking to our neighbors, and we had all of the dogs in the yard with us, and our youngest, 5 Alive, who's a year and a half, he wanted to, did not dig, but he wanted to sniff and roll in one of the areas in the yard. And we were... I shouldn't say we, I guess I should say I won't lump you into it. But I wasn't being a very good dog trainer in the moment because I was kind of busy talking to the neighbors, and I was kind of half paying attention to him. And he would go over and he would like get get into that thing, and I would say, hey, knock it off, leave it. And he would walk away, and then I would go back to talking to my neighbor, and then 2 seconds later, I'd turn around, and he'd be right back at the thing. And I must have told him to leave it, I don't know how many times, because I was, again, not really giving him my full focus.
Not being a great trainer.
No, being a terrible dog trainer. And I'm sure this is what we all do, because we're focused on something else. But what happened is I finally said, God, Kel, like, how many times are you going to tell this dog to stop doing this? So it took me having to go over, take him by the collar, and actually walk him away and say, hey, that's enough, leave it. And then I actually had him lie down just beside me for a few moments, and then let him get up and let him do his thing. Praised him.
Yeah.
But because I had taken so long to do something, he actually went back right after I did that and nudged at it again. So it reminded me about consistency. I let it happen too many times before I said something. So I actually had to follow through. I had to redirect him 2 or 3 times before he went, oh, I guess I actually need to stop. And why I'm sharing that with you is that you need to remember that dogs, you have to learn a little bit about your dogs. I have some dogs, like we have some dogs that we own, that I would tell, like if I said that to Beeline once, she probably would never go back to that thing again, because she's just a different nature dog. Not that Five's a bad dog, but he's just a little bit more curious. He's got a bit of a different temperament, a different personality. So I had to tell him a few times, and I needed to be consistent and follow through. And because I reacted each and every time, he went, oh, you're actually serious, and I need to stop doing that. But most people don't follow through. They do it once, they say do it twice, and they think, oh, he's not listening, whatever, it's not working. But if you keep at it, you will affect change. And that's what redirection is. You need to redirect until you actually affect change.
I think what I immediately think about is that, number one, that might be the experience that you've had. Maybe you've allowed your dog to rehearse it just a few times, whatever the behavior is that you don't like.
Always harder to fix then.
It is harder to fix, for sure, because the dog's already found some reward there. But we'll make mistakes too. These things happen. The difference is we know how to apply things like a smart strategy. We know what to do next. We know how much of effort to get from the dog after redirecting them from that nuisance behavior. Kale knows exactly how long she needs to make that dog work for until she can give them that opportunity to get up. I mean, the fact he's lying down is whatever. Could be a sit, could be some whatever.
Something that was stopping him from going back and doing the thing over and over and over
again.
And
understand that when I say, hey, leave it, you have to listen to me. This is, I think...
And if you were in your house, you might pop them in their crate for a couple minutes to stop the behavior.
For sure, because you're busy. Because that's a solution that you can go back and then you can train it after. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's funny, as you're just talking about that, I think back to my first dog, who I had no training with until she was a couple years old, and then my vet was like, listen, this dog is a wild child. You need to go over to McCann Dogs. You need some help with her. And I went and did the training, and solved a lot of problems. I started to see changes quickly, but I still struggled a little bit with that leadership thing until that conversation with your mom, and we talked a little bit about using a crate. But my second dog that I got, that was I trained from the ground up. Totally different experience. Not every dog is going to be the same. Also, from the very beginning, early on, I started giving him good information. I didn't let him rehearse the bad stuff. I supervised him a lot more. I managed him way better. I was able to anticipate some of the struggles that I might have based on what I was seeing with him. It made me a great leader for him. I also learned very quickly what motivates this dog, because I was supervising, managing, not letting things go by that I might not see, understanding what he does when another dog walks by or something like that. This is really the impactful stuff, these moments you're spending with your young dog in training that can it makes you a better trainer for them. We're all going to run into struggles. There's going to be things that don't go quite right. As Kale just described, we're going to make mistakes too.
Yeah.
But knowing what to do next is really important. The key factor here, when you can identify the problem, you can start to train out a solution. That's smart strategy. The end part is train. So as an example, if we wanted to use, let's say that example, let's say Five has no real understanding of what that struggle was that you had at the house when you're trying to get him away from the thing that he was trying to, fuss with. What skill might you teach in an instance like that someone at home could teach for their dog?
Yeah, one of the most valuable things that you can teach your dog is to leave it when you ask them to, or to respond to their name.
Yep.
Those two things could sometimes go hand in hand. The response to name could prevent him from going towards the thing that I don't want him to go towards. And I would use a response to name rather than a recall in that situation, because it's not really an emergency. It's just I need to redirect his attention and get his attention back on me. But the leave it is really helpful because you can use it in all kinds of situations in the house or outside when you're on walks. There's going to be all kinds of things that you're going to walk by with your dog or approach with your dog that you do not want them to touch. Mm-hmm. You want them to leave alone. It could be, I dropped an Advil pill in the office the other day, and Beeline was beside me, and I just said, leave it, because she went, oh, what did you just drop? To go and check it out. I don't want her touching that. So I just said, hey, leave it. And she stopped immediately, and I was able to pick it up and keep her safe. And I thought, oh, I'm so glad you know that. So that is definitely something I would spend some time working on. I'm fairly certain that do we have a video teaching leave it?
I'm sure we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, it would be better to watch the video and get step-by-step instructions, but that would be a really, really helpful one, and you will be shocked at how often you use it with your dog or your puppy.
I think the important part is identifying the problem. I've recognized that this thing isn't going well. What am I going to do next? It's so often it's something like leash walking with people. Yes. They're like, I don't know. I don't have the right harness. I don't have the right thing. I'll tell you, this was me. I bought all the stuff trying to solve the problem. The best thing I ever did was go to training at McCann's. Like, that is the thing that changed everything, because all of a sudden I knew what to do. I knew, how to redirect. I knew how to be engaging. I knew what choices to make when it came to leash walking, that all of the different kinds of equipment, all the fancy, there's so much fad stuff out there. It seems like there's like all sorts of crazy equipment and harnesses and collars and leashes, and that stuff is completely, it doesn't hold a candle to knowing what the right thing is to do, to making the right decision with your dog. So when we're talking about training, sometimes you need to really think about, what's the big picture here? What is the skill I'm going to train? Talk about the distance, distraction, duration, like understanding the difference between those three things. We've talked about that a lot in our videos. Yeah. Understanding that when you're training these skills, the dog might continue to fail. What are you going to do to make it easier? Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, let's say, it's super common when I see it all the time. My dog doesn't come in when I let them out for a pee. I keep calling them, nothing's happening. You've identified a problem. Supervision's a little bit lacking. Management, what are you doing for management? Mm-hmm. Anticipation, well, you've just let your dog out to fail again. Yeah. It's not going well. You can't redirect, you're too far away. What are you going to do to train in this instance? Yeah,
for that particular instance, there's a couple of things that I do. Prior to when my dog actually has to go out for a bathroom break, I would actually go out and practice training my recall in that exact setup. I might have a family member hold my dog, facing the door out in the backyard, and I might stand in the inside of the door and shake their favorite toy or show them a favorite treat and call them in and then reward them like crazy, and then send them back out to the family member and practice that 2 or 3 times. So the dog says, whew, that's kind of a fun game. I like that. And then when it goes to be time to let the puppy out or let the dog out for a bathroom break, I'm going to keep a long line on my dog, so that if I call my dog and my dog says, I'm too busy doing my own thing out here, I can go through redirection. I don't have a dog that's off leash and I go, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? I don't have control. I'm going to be ready to redirect the dog and use the line, tug on the line a couple times to get their attention, and then try and encourage them in. But I'm not going to call a million times and let them ignore me. I'm going to try and set myself up so that I can give good information, and I break the habit of the dog rehearsing it all the time. And that means that you just have to be a little bit more aware and a little bit more realistic about what your dog's skill sets are. And I think I said this earlier on the stream, but if you suspect that your dog might do something wrong, they're probably going to do that thing wrong. Your gut's probably right. So get ahead of the storm and try to outsmart them a little bit by being ready with the proper tools that you need to train through that particular thing.
Albert Rossignol, superstar at our parkour class, says, if I wouldn't let the dog off leash. Now, if they don't have 100%
right.
recall, that's it. That's
Yep.
good anticipation.
Freedom's
that's good
earned
management,
through
for sure.
good listening.
100%. Something that I wanted to mention really briefly, it's been really stormy here around the train station. I know there's like flickering lights down in one of the terminals. It's been noisy. So we've had to pump the McCann Dogs music channel over the speakers here. Down past the Cinnabon, you can hear it, I mean, almost all the way
Cinnabon.
out to the outside. But if you have a dog that is sensitive to noise, if you're working on crate training, if you're working on like opportunities to be separate from your dog, where maybe you're in your office and they have some time that they're relaxing in their crate or wherever, music can make a big difference. The whole reason we came up with the McCann Dogs music channel, and the reason that we were working with digital music creators, is to make music that's right for those situations. We have taken the time to specifically create music and find music that will like fill that space so your dog's more relaxed in their crate. We used it the last couple of days at home because we had thunderstorms. We use it in our crate room at the training facility so that there's just this ambient sound. It fills that ambient space so that the dogs are less likely, to be responsive if someone slams the door or, comes walking in a room and surprises everybody. It's a really useful tool. So if you're using music for your dog, and a lot of people do, they'll say, hey, Alexa. I didn't want to say that because all of your Alexas might activate. You can listen to McCann Dogs music there. And it's on our main YouTube channel for McCann Dogs music. It's totally ad-free. There's no like mid-roll ads that go on. So definitely definitely check that out. When we're talking about smart dog training, you're going to be focused on supervision, management, anticipation, redirecting with good timing, and training. You've got to be sensing a theme here. The more we talk about the fact you have to train, and it's work. A lot of people are like, well, I don't know, that sounds like work. That's because it is. But put in the time now. Solve these problems. Being a great leader for your dog is so easy when you're making good choices. It just comes naturally, and your dog starts to listen better. Your dog starts to learn faster. It's incredible the results you get. I'm telling you this because I'm not only a whatever employee, I'm also a client or whatever. There's an old thing like that. That's me. I made these mistakes. I get it. Changing my approach, like we've talked about tonight, is the thing that made all the difference in the world. And I'm excited for you to start changing these things, to hear about it. Maybe you can drop a comment. If you're watching the replay, definitely drop a comment. What changes are you going to make tonight to your puppy and dog training that's going to allow you to be a better leader? You need to be intentional about these things. But boy, oh boy, does it ever pay off in the end. Did you have anything else? Oh, get your McCann Dogs Puppy House line. They're going out like hotcakes, which is, I think, the American word for
like
pancakes.
Cinnabons.
Yeah. McCannDogs.store. I'm super pumped about these. They look amazing hanging on the wall. This is the tool that we recommend in every single puppy video. It doesn't matter what kind of puppy you've got. A house line is crucial.
Yeah, and remember, this is for training in the house. It's not for walking. You want to actually get we have great leather leashes and stuff for actually training and walking, but this is just like an extension of your dog's body so that when you're in the house, you need to kind of get control. You have an easy way to do that.
Yeah. Albert, I do remember that now. I'm not only something, I'm also a client. It's an old commercial. Now, I think what's really important here is with all of the teaching, all of the training, all of the things that we've talked about tonight, the rest, my friends, well, that is up to you.